As electrification accelerates across industry, transport, and AI-driven economy, energy has become a strategic constraint for Europe. European energy sovereignty is now urgent. Moritz Jungmann, partner at Future Energy Ventures, will discuss what it realistically takes to get there. Please welcome Moritz Jungmann, partner at Future Energy Ventures, in conversation with yours truly, Andreas Munk, co-founder of EUVC.
Moritz, everyone's talking about AI. Everyone's talking about how the future is very near. But it's also very apparent that we truly do need a lot of energy for that. Are we at all ready for that in Europe?
Yes, I think the bottleneck is not the energy or the capacity that we have in the European market. In the end, and I think we'll probably touch on the topic later, it's getting access to the energy. But overall, if we look at the capacity that we have built out in Europe, it's around, like, let's say, 1,000 gigawatt. We have around 50% of it built up with renewables. I think we are well set to meet the data center demand. I think it's around 200 terawatt by 2030 that needs to be built. It's a huge opportunity to invest. But of course, you need to look where you can actually connect these data centers and where you get the energy from.
So what you're saying is we can create energy. That's not the big issue. The big issue is the grid and how we make that actually ready for it. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I think we all know infrastructure, especially critical infrastructure, is a very regulated asset. There was not a lot of innovation. I was working for quite some time for a large German grid company. They did not have an R&D function. So there was no development into how the grid can actually function more innovative. But we're seeing now a lot of claims about that the throughput you actually put onto the grid, you can lift up by 10, 20, 30%, depending on weather conditions, depending, of course, also on volatility and similar, let's say, other factors that you can use them on.
So are you saying that provided we fix the grid, which we should talk about how we get there, whether you think it's feasible, you're saying we actually are in a good place?
Yes, I think from a pure energy capacity perspective, we're in a good place. Why is that? Because there's a deindustrialization happening, which frees up capacity, which we can now reroute to other consumption takeovers.
So then tell me, are we taking the steps? Is it feasible that we get the grid working so that we actually can bring about the digitization of industry, the electrification of our mobility space, and of course also AI?
Totally. I wouldn't know why we shouldn't be able to do it. I think, of course, everybody is stressing that the grid is under stress. And that's, of course, true because we are in a shift of our energy status quo. We were producing energy centrally, and we're now moving from this very centralistic system to a very decentralized. And this means that now power generation is actually happening everywhere. The DSO, the distribution system operators, they were never meant to actually orchestrate this kind of power flows. But it doesn't mean that they cannot do it.
So in your view, when we hear the talks about how we're going to run out of energy, it's all a matter of how cheap you can get energy because energy is the core input to compute, which is, of course, what we need for AI. That's all fear-mongering. That's all blabber from people that are on.
I think you're touching on a different topic, which is price. And I think that is, of course, if we compare to the US or to other large economies, is a big problem. Energy price is expensive, but it's not very expensive because how we produce it. It's rather expensive on the fees that we stack on top of it. So it's a question, again, of competitiveness. How do I actually want to build out this new system so that I can onboard different or new levels on consumption?
So I want to ask you one final question. What are the key steps we got to take for Europe to be completely ready for what's ahead of us when it comes to the digitalization, the mobility that's being electrified, and of course AI?
I think, and this is also what the conference is about, it's about speed. speed of allocating capital. And it of course addresses every, let's say, capital allocator in the value chain, from VC to infra, buyout, and other means. And for VC, I think what I was saying, capacity is not a problem. I think building out renewable capacity, we have shown that we can add around 100 gigawatt per year as we speak. We probably need to move it up to 110, 20, 30 to reach the capacity for all new electrified, for electrifying the new sectors. But what it also means, shifting a very centralized system to a decentralized system, is that we need to invest in a lot of orchestration power, which is usually software. We learned that the energy utilities did not really have the capacity to build up this know-how. And this is where we see a huge opportunity to invest in young or mature startups that can bring this know-how and this expertise to these markets. And I think also here, touching on the sovereignty topic again, in the end, power markets are still very isolated. They're very enclosed. Of course, we still buy a lot of, or import a lot of fuels, a lot of LNG gas from the US, but with pushing forward the electrification, with pushing forward the renewable build-out, which we already have proven that we can do it, it's now on us to focus on the intermittency. Some want to invest in nuclear, I wouldn't. But maybe invest a little bit more in battery technologies that can look into faster, longer storage components. But if we can manage this, and if we can to align on a policy level and agree on what assets should actually be connected to the grid first, because the process of the past and still the process of today for many regions is still the wind town principle. So who comes first gets it. And I think this does really make sense if we're thinking about decoupling our energy needs from geopolitical confrontations. And hence, I believe we have a great opportunity for Europe to become more energy independent, which hopefully also helps to stay and become a little bit more sovereign. Thank you.
And a great opportunity for a 250 million euro first energy ventures fund.
Yes.
Thank you so much, my friend.